The silence in the kitchen wasn't the comfortable kind that settles over a home after a long day. It was dense and pressurized, like the air in a submarine that's gone too deep. It pressed against the eardrums, louder than the rain hammering against the slate roof, louder than the hum of the refrigerator in the corner. I can't do this anymore. I think I'm done. The words were spoken with a terrifying lack of volume. They didn't scream. They simply evaporated into the room, changing the chemical composition of the air instantly. Liam stood by the back door, looking out into the dark, wet garden. He wasn't watching the storm. He was watching his own ghostly reflection in the glass, his hands buried deep in the pockets of his gray cardigan. He looked faded, like a watercolor painting left out in the sun. Nora was sitting at the heavy oak dining table, her laptop open, a spreadsheet reflecting in her glasses. Her hand, halfway to her coffee mug, froze. Her brain scrambled to process the statement. Was he talking about his job? The leaking roof? But the slump of Liam's shoulders suggested something far more permanent. Done. Nora asked, her voice cracking, sounding strange and small in the large room. Done with what? The project. Liam turned slowly. The overhead light cast shadows over the lines in his face, lines that seemed to have carved themselves deeper over the last 12 months. He didn't look angry. He looked eroded. He looked like a cliff face that had finally given way to the ocean.
No, Nora. Us.
I have to leave. I can't live in this house anymore. Nora's hand shook, and she set the mug down hard. Coffee sloshed over the rim, staining the wood, but she didn't reach for a napkin. I don't understand, she stammered, her heart suddenly kicking against her ribs like a trapped bird. We just booked the flight to Italy. We talked about painting the nursery room. We were fine at dinner. You were smiling. I was in the room, Liam said, his voice gentle but devastating. I was performing a function. That isn't a marriage, Nora. That's just cohabitation. He walked over to the sideboard where his keys lay next to his stack of organized bills. He stared at them for a long moment, as if he couldn't quite remember how to use them. Before we find out what happens next, if this story is resonating with you, please take a quick moment to like this video and subscribe. It truly supports the channel and helps me share more stories like this one. I'd also love to know, tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? Are you in a bustling city where the lights never dim, or somewhere quiet where the only sound is the wind in the trees? I feel like a ghost in my own life, Liam continued, his voice barely above a whisper. I have for years. I walk into a room and I feel like an item on your checklist. I try to tell you I'm sinking, and you're already on your phone, solving a crisis for a client or planning our retirement. I'm lonely, Nora. I'm lonely even when you're sitting right next to me. A flush of defensive heat rose up Nora's neck. That isn't fair, she snapped, pushing her chair back. The legs scraped violently against the floorboards. I work myself to the bone to keep this life stable. I handle the finances, the repairs, the plans. I make sure we're safe. I do all of that for us. I never asked for a safety officer, Liam said, finally meeting her eyes. The raw sorrow in his gaze stopped her cold. I wanted a partner. I wanted my wife. How long? Nora whispered, the fight draining out of her, replaced by a cold dread. How long have you felt like this? Since my dad died, he admitted, looking away toward the hallway. It wasn't a sudden break. It was a slow drift. It was 1,000 mornings where we didn't speak. It was you stopping asking, how are you, and starting to ask, what did you get done? It was realizing that if I walked out, the only thing that would change is you'd have one less plate to wash. You never said anything, Nora said, her voice trembling, tears stinging her eyes. We could have seen a counselor. We could have fixed it. I tried, Liam said. Maybe I was too quiet, but eventually, silence felt safer. It hurts less to be lonely by yourself than to be lonely with the person who promised to love you forever. He picked up the keys. He reached down and grabbed a small suitcase that was sitting by the pantry. He must have packed it while she was on her conference call. The sight of it, that gray canvas bag, made Nora feel like the floor was dropping out from under her. I'm going to stay at the motel by the harbor, he said. I need to think. I can't breathe in here right now. He turned toward the door. This was it. The end of 14 years. The end of the universe they had built together. Wait. It wasn't a beg. It was a command. Nora didn't move toward him. She turned and ran into the living room, nearly tripping over the rug. She fell to her knees in front of the antique cabinet, throwing open the doors and digging through a stack of old board games. Nora, please don't make this harder, Liam called out, his hand on the doorknob. Just wait, she shouted back, her voice cracking with desperation. She found it, hidden inside a beat-up shoebox. A bundle of letters, tied together with rough twine. The paper was yellowed, the edges worn. She ran back to the kitchen, clutching the bundle against her chest like it was a lifeline. If you're walking out that door, Nora said, breathing hard, you have to take this. I can't be the keeper of this anymore. Liam paused. He turned back, confusion knitting his brow. Then his eyes landed on the bundle. His face went white. The exhaustion was replaced by a flash of panic. Where did you find those? I was cleaning the attic last spring, Nora said. They were in a box marked trash. Nora? Liam stepped away from the door, dropping his suitcase. I wrote those 3 years ago. I know, she said. The year you lost your job. The year the depression got bad. You weren't supposed to read them. They were never meant to be sent. But I did, Nora said, stepping closer. I didn't mean to pry. I saw my name on the first one. I thought it was an old love letter I'd forgotten. I opened it and then I couldn't stop. Liam leaned back against the counter, crossing his arms tight across his chest, protecting himself. That was the lowest point of my life. I was underwater. I didn't know how to function, let alone be a husband. Why didn't you give them to me? Nora asked, tears finally spilling over. Why did you write to me on paper instead of talking to me? Liam let out a dry, humorless laugh. Because look at you, Nora. You're a machine. You're unstoppable. When everything fell apart, you went into high gear. You balanced the budget, you found me interviews, you managed the household. You were so busy being strong. I felt like if I showed you how weak I was, I'd just be another broken appliance you had to fix. I felt like a burden. I thought I was saving you, Nora whispered, her voice breaking. I thought if I handled the chaos, you could just breathe. I was trying to protect you. I didn't know you were drowning. I thought you wanted space. I didn't need space, Liam said softly. I needed a witness. I needed you to stop managing the crisis and just sit in the hole with me. The kitchen fell silent again, but the texture of the silence had changed. It wasn't the cold vacuum from before. It was heavy with the tragedy of two people who loved each other, missing each other in the dark. Nora placed the letters on the table, right next to the spilled coffee. I read the letter from October, Nora said, her voice finding a sudden strength. The one where you said you sat in the driveway for an hour because you didn't have the energy to put on the happy husband mask before walking through the door. Liam looked at the floor, shame coloring his neck.
Yeah.
And I read the last one, Nora continued. The one where you said you stayed. You wrote that you stayed not because you were trapped, but because you remembered the way I used to look at you. You wrote that you still loved me enough to hope that one day I'd see you again. She looked at him, her soul laid bare in her eyes. Is that still true, Liam? Or did I wait too long? Liam looked at the bundle of letters. He looked at his wife. He looked at the home they had built, the scuff marks on the floor, the messy, imperfect life they shared. I don't know if we can fix this, Liam admitted, and the honesty of it hurt more than a lie would have. I'm empty, Nora. I don't have anything left to give. I know, Nora said. She took a deep breath. I'm not asking you to give anything right now. And I'm not asking you to fix it today. I'm asking you not to leave. I'm asking you to stay in the mess with me. She placed her hand on the sticky table, palm up. You said you needed to be seen, she said. I see you, Liam. I see the grief you're still carrying. I see how tired you are. And I see that I failed you. I don't want to manage you anymore. I just want to know who you are now. Liam stood there, the internal war raging behind his eyes. The easy path was the door, the motel, the silence. The hard path was right here in this kitchen. Slowly, painfully, he took his hand off the doorknob. "I need some air," he said. His voice was rough, like gravel. "Okay," Nora breathed. "Just on the porch." He opened the back door and stepped out into the biting rain. He didn't walk to the car. He walked to the railing and leaned on it, the wind whipping his hair back. Nora didn't follow him. She didn't wipe up the coffee. She didn't check her laptop. She sat down at the table, directly across from the empty chair, and she waited. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The wind howled against the siding. Finally, the latch clicked. The door opened. Liam stepped back inside, bringing the smell of wet earth and rain with him. He didn't take off his coat, but he didn't pick up the suitcase. He walked to the table and pulled out the chair opposite her. The wood groaned as he sat. "I can't promise that I'll be happy tomorrow," he said. "I can't just flip a switch." "I know," Nora nodded. "No promises. Just the truth. Especially if it's ugly," Liam added. He looked at the bundle of letters, then pushed it gently to the side. "If we do this, if we actually try, the silence has to stop. If I'm going under, I have to tell you. And you have to stop trying to pull me out and just hold my hand while I tread water." "I will," Nora said. She reached her hand across the table. It was shaking slightly. Liam looked at her hand. It was the hand that had held his when his father died, even if she had been busy making arrangements with the other one. It was the hand that had helped him build this table. He hesitated, the fear of rejection still lingering. But then, slowly, he reached out. His hand was freezing cold from the outside air. Hers was warm. When their fingers interlocked, there was no spark, no movie moment crescendo. There was just a grounding, an anchor finding the seabed. They sat there as the rain continued to fall, washing away the dust of the last few years. The coffee was cold. The future was terrifyingly uncertain. The separation hadn't happened, but the marriage they had known yesterday was gone. It had died in the night. Liam didn't unpack his bag that evening. It stayed by the door for 3 days. But he didn't leave. And in the quiet space between them, for the first time in years, they weren't two roommates passing in the hallway. They were two strangers, sitting amidst the wreckage of their assumptions, beginning the long, slow, and necessary work of introducing themselves to each other all over again. "Hi," Nora whispered, a sad but hopeful smile touching her lips. "I'm Nora." Liam squeezed her hand, his eyes finally clearing. "I'm Liam. It's nice to meet you." Outside, the storm raged on, but the house stood silent and sturdy, holding them safe as they started over.